see my screen and hear me out clearly. Just press the hand button so that I know that you've got it. Okay, great. Okay, I have a special guest here with me. My friend, my business partner, and also, to a great extent, my mentor as well. Say hello to Sam Colombo. Sam's been a builder for over 30 years. And when we met, I don't know, back in 2013, early 2013, we Sam had enough of doing all the hard yards for other developers, so we teamed up, and here we are. So say hello to Sam, everyone. Sam?
Yeah, hi guys. And that's assuming that is there any women in your class?
No, there are no women in my class.
I'm politically correct by saying hi guys.
So if you've got in any given time, if you had any questions regarding construction or anything, just press the hand button and Sam will address them. The reason I actually invited Sam over and Sam decided to stay back for this class was because Sam is a master of no money down deals, and I mean, he's got something that's really makes the vendor or whoever you're making the deal with tick. And together we've now done a few no money down deal projects, and I'll let Sam start something. Just let me know if you can hear Sam clearly. And Sam will give you guys an overview of what's required, what does it take to actually do a no money down deal.
Yeah, look, I hope everyone can hear me, but I think what Amber's got laid out in front for this evening is very detailed and very specific. And so when you take everything that you will be talking about tonight, you've got to look at it as this is my color palette, you know. A no money down deal is basically not so much a formula, but an art. It really is an art. And why I say it's an art is because you really don't know what the picture looks like or what the deal is going to look like. You can't go in there with, you know, rigid, straight up and down strategies. You have to be so loose, so fluid, and so and giving. And when I say giving, there are always concessions to be made in these negotiations. But in saying that, it really comes down to the one analogy that I used in the early days, and that was if you give me $100 and I give you $150 back tomorrow, you know, would you mind if I make $10? And the obvious answer is, of course, you're welcome to make $10. And that essentially is that no money down deal. At the end of the day, the person on the other side needs to see what's in it for me, you know. And apart from what's in it for me, what is my assurances? What's my security? You know, it's not dazzle them with brilliance and baffle them with bullshit, because people can see right through that. You know, it has to be backed up. And I think what Amber's got prepared tonight is how you can back this up. You know, I think Amber can even attest to this, that our first no money down deal, the potential investor that we were attracting to this project said, you need to come with me to my accountant. And so we did. We went to see his accountant, we laid out the entire deal, and he still
before that, his accountant was impressed with the project.
Absolutely.
He ticked every box. He looked at the full project report. there was nothing, and he even said that, what's the worst
Worst
that could
case
happen?
scenario. He said, well, I won't say his name, but let's call him Jim. He said, Jim, the worst case scenario is that you own a property. And that's what I mean by security. Now, the accountant understood it, but the investor, you see, the biggest problem was that money is everything to so many of us, and it should be that way because we all work hard for it. So very hard for someone to, let's say, invest 50% of their life savings, 20% of their life savings, 10% of their life savings, or whatever it may be. It comes down to your level of fear. Or as in the casino, they say, well, you only gamble what you can afford to lose. So you've got to work around all that mentality. But, as an overview, there's so many examples. I mean, I had one today where I know the owner of a certain property, and all of a sudden there's 2 properties next to it that have come up for sale. But what I'm trying to do with the owner that I know is find out how many on the other side are willing to sell. Now, what does that do? As an example, that tells me what I've got as far as potential, you might say, investors or landholders that are willing to, say, link up with this smaller sale. So in other words, it's a site that if it sells on its own, it's not really a big deal. But if somebody buys that site, let's say, and has secured or has an agreement with potentially another 4 or 5 landowners, then all of a sudden you've got some ingredients. And you'll talk about all of that today with Amber. But once you know what you're working with, you start structuring this no money down deal. And I mean, for example, we might look at this project and say, there's enough for everyone to make a decent and fair amount of money. And that's first and foremost. And then you'll see what's left over. And if that left over is, say, I've got 10% of the project, or in some cases, you could potentially have 30% or 40% of the project.
We had 40% of the project.
Yeah, but it worked. I mean, at the end of the day, these people are wrapped. They see we've delivered, and you must deliver. Now, in our situation, it's probably a little bit different because we are in-house everything. So we have the luxury of having control over everything.
We do have that now, but Sam, when we did this project, we didn't even have a construction company.
No, that's right.
We had no construction company. Sam had experience in construction. I was banking on the experience from the mentor that I'd hired, and together we were just playing tag all the time, trying to manage 5 different investors. 5 different lawyers. We had to fight, and every lawyer was trying to grill both of us to make sure that because they've got an obligation towards their client, and they've got to cover their backside by telling them don't do this deal. And you'll find that so many times that it will happen. So before you can actually get to a point where your investor is going to go see their lawyer or their accountant, or especially JVs with landowner, very, very dicey, because the reason is, if, for example, you're the landowner and I'm the developer, and I come to you and I said, look, you live on this house, and especially if it's a PPR, the first thing that accountant is going to tell them is that inflate the land, sell it to them, and get out of it because you don't pay any capital gains tax on it. Because it's the easiest option for them. However, if they stay in, they'll make extra $200,000-300,000 in the project, and that's what happened with D. All along, we spent 2 years with this landowner, and tried to satisfy her with everything that she demanded, everything that she wanted to see. She went to her lawyer, her accountant, checked us out left, right, and center, sent the report out to 10 other property gurus who checked the report and who said yes and everything. And towards the end, the accountant told her that, inflate the land and get out of it. That way you don't pay any tax. And she was like, if I make all this money, I'll lose my disability pension. And it was a bit of a kick in the gut, because last minute we had to go through a shark lender, because we
That's
already
right.
worked
Yeah.
on the project for 2 years
Yeah.
to be able to get the project offer.
Yeah.
And but yeah, she spent the money to get the DA. We just controlled the site and steered it until it was ready.
Yeah. Look, no money down deals, they may sound mystical and magical, but they've got to make a lot of sense. They've got to make a lot of sense, and I can't emphasize any more than saying that it is an art form, and you need to be very, let's say, imaginative. For
And thorough.
Yeah, you do. You do. I mean, it starts with that, and then it's like anything. It's no different to writing a piece of music or painting a picture. You have to have an idea, or an idea comes to you of something. Many years ago, I thought, geez, it'd be good to develop all these parking lots that are connected to railway stations. And this is like 30 years ago, and now I see it. Somebody or a big enough company has done a no money down deal many years ago, and said, well, this is what we're prepared to do, and they've developed so many parking lots and so on. But you can think about it on a big scale or a small scale, but really it's just got to stack up. It's got to make sense, and it wouldn't matter how many zeros are at the end of it. It's basically got to make sense and stack up and be able to be scrutinized, probed, pulled apart, and then and they did that with many projects. A lot of people went looking for holes in your feasibility, or in your strategy, or in your it wouldn't matter where you look. People will look for holes, and if there's no holes, and you have to be honest enough with yourself and not kid yourself, and say, well, this has got no holes. If it's got no holes, it's watertight, which means you've got a good deal. And if you've got a good deal, a no money down deal doesn't mean that you're getting a gift. A no money down deal means that you've been creative enough, imaginative enough, that to put together a concept, a plan, for people to make money along with you. And the rest is all in front of you, by the looks of it, with what Amber's about to go through with you.
No, I was, I think I had the tax return for Isaac Fitzroy. I'm just looking for that. So I can...
Well, I mean...
okay, this is our no money down deal that Sam and I did. We kept 40% of the project in equity. We carried the project from start to finish. Twice during the project, we felt that we've got no money left. How are we going to keep going? But some way or the other, we first managed to just settle, with no money to even go and get a DI. We managed to do that. Then we managed to, muster another 200K somehow from somewhere. And then we kept going until the DI. Then there was shenanigans. They were not shenanigans. They were vigilantes who actually distributed all these flyers throughout the council area, throughout that area, to not
anti-development.
Just anti-development, and they were all against us. So it was like an uphill battle for 2 years.
It always is.
And we actually had no money at the time. Because we were doing a no money down deal, and we just kept going. Somehow, somewhere, we just didn't leave any stone unturned. We called whoever we could. We tried to make deals and get other investors in who could bring in some money and work out, but somehow it didn't work out. And I'm glad that it didn't, because if you look here, the project actually made 1.374 million, and this was in 2 years, and so that's what it made. But it got distributed amongst the 5 investors. They got their principal back as a goodwill gesture.
Plus interest.
We gave them a flat interest rate for 2 years on their money. So first the principal came back, then the interest on that came back, and in fact we actually had extra units left, and we just distributed it.
Equally,
if we wanted, we could have kept it, but we just distributed it amongst the investors who would actually put in money. So they got some of I think the person who put in the larger share got 3 units extra for free. The second line got 2, and the other one got 1 unit for free.
Yeah.
And that was just to sweeten the deal. Yeah. And nothing came into our pocket until the project was settled.
Yeah. Look, no money down deals. Also, you know, if you say, well, pick your target. In other words, you can't go driving around thinking that you're going to do a no money down deal with anything or anyone. But you know, you probably could at a later stage. You know, when you've got that confidence and that ability to know all the hoops that you need to jump. But pick, let's say, a likely target. And when I say a likely target, you could be sitting on a property that you're living in, it's paid off, and you get on really well with the neighbours. You know, start there. You know, if there's an opportunity, you know, there may be an opportunity there and then for you to say, well, I can do a deal here between all of us. You know, or it could be someone you know, or a family member, or at work, or your boss, or maybe someone that's sitting on some land. But you can start somewhere. I mean, I'm going back a long time ago when I went up to the bank. I don't even know if I've told you this story, Amber, but there was a property along the river, along the Murray, and I'd seen that it had, you know, already a subdivision along the riverbank. In other words, any property along the river is worth money. Now, these are only acre blocks, and I thought, this is fantastic, you know. So I went to the bank, and I actually proposed a no money down deal with a bank back then. And I said, this is what I want to do. I want to develop these blocks of land along the river, and I want to keep the farm. Now, the bank, after it's done its own due diligence, came back to me and said, we'll do the deal with you, but you've got to sell the farm and keep building because that's what you're good at. And I said, well, no, that's not what I want to do it for. I just want to end up with a nice big property along the river and be a farmer. But it didn't work that way. But it proved to me that so long as it made sense, so long as it stacked up. I mean, you know, back then you did have a bank that was a lot more willing, let's say, you know, to listen to these sort of deals and prepared to, look, they'd give money out to people that had a pulse back then, so it doesn't make any difference. But it's just pointing out that ability to be creative and to have that vision, and then to be smart about who you know, what you choose to work on or what you choose to approach. You know, you can go for the impossible, and I'm not saying it doesn't, because the fortune will always favour the brave. Now, you have to also invest something into this. Due diligence doesn't mean that it's just words. You're going to have to look for the right consultants, the right reports, and you're going to have that ability to call on all these resources to support your proposal. You know, so it's no point talking to someone about financial matters when you're not a financial advisor, or legal matters and you're not a lawyer. So yes, you're the artist, you're the person with the brush and the colors and everything, and it's up to you really to put it down on paper and see if it does work. So I've probably said enough because I said I'd just give a brief overview, but Amber, I know you got a long way to go with the rest of it, but good luck to everyone. And
if anybody wanted to ask a question, ask Sam a question, just press the hand button. I'll put you on mic and you can say hello to Sam and ask your question. Okay, Ashley. Sam? Ashley, I'll introduce you to Ashley. Just give me 1 second. Ashley is an economist.
Okay.
And Ashley, you're on mic.
Ashley, you're an economist. If I'd have known I was talking to an economist, I wouldn't have stayed back.
That's all right.
No, you're right.
No, I'm a reformed economist.
Are you? Well, I hope it made sense because you'd be probably a better judge at this than myself. But, you know.
This is all, it's fascinating learning about new things and so on. So I guess I've got a very practical question. Let's say you're doing a no money down deal and you've got a couple of guys who want to invest, you want to do 6 townhouses or something like that. And you're doing I've seen an example of a profit share where the arranger takes a split of the profits without actually putting in any of his own money himself.
Yeah.
What is the range of plausible profit splits? So if one guy's doing all the work, they're not putting in any money, and the other guys are just putting in money. Because I've seen a suggestion, the one that I had seen, which I just said no to, where someone had approached me, and which was a 60-40 profit split, meaning if I'm the investor, then I get 60% of the profits, and the arranger gets 40% of the profits without putting any money in.
I couldn't see too many.
And not only that, the proposal was also for half of the profit of the 40% profits to be paid sort of on a monthly basis before the project is even completed.
No.
So the expected profits.
You see, that's not a no money down deal. That is just being a greedy idiot.
Yeah, I know what it is, but structurally, okay,
look,
fine.
It can be
ratios, and it's okay. So what's a plausible range of?
Well, like I said, what about if I said to you and I put it to you, okay, you keep 70% of the profit, 75% of the profit, and I just want 25% of the profit. It can be. I mean, to me, if I was listening to somebody and I say, okay, well, that's a pretty big chunk all the same, because when people are putting money down, they think they deserve it all. They feel that they're entitled to the profits, but really...
the reality of the thing is that they can't do it on their own.
That's it. And then how good is the deal that you're offering? Look, a scenario like you're saying there, Ashley, I mean, that 60%, I've got to weigh up what that 60% looks like. Like I was saying to you before, I mean, if that meant that my $500,000 was doubled in X amount of time, then let the guy have 40%,
Sure. But if it's a fairly vanilla townhouse type project where you got a 16% return on development costs and so on.
It's not fair enough.
There's no meat.
See, over here, actually, when the scales tipped in his favor, because he's getting his money up front without any success fee or any fee to actually deliver. So what has he got to lose? Nothing. He's 4 months later he could just vanish or not be in the project or not be serious about it because he hasn't got any hurt money.
I agree with you exactly, which is why I took about 3 seconds to say
look,
actually, what would be normal? Let's say a 5 or 6 townhouse development. What would be a normal sort of profit split then?
Look, you could give him 10 grand a townhouse as his fee, which comes at the end of the project, and that's all he gets. He's got to deliver the project, and then he's got 60K.
Are you the investor? Are you the investor? Ashley, are you the investor or the project manager, you might say?
Well, I could be either. So I don't mind doing someone else's project and getting a fee for it. So I'm kind of interested from that point of view. But I've also sat on the other side where someone's approached me and I've said no because I thought that was a ridiculous split. Yeah. And also I was still very early in thinking about the property development thing.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious from both sides, to be honest. So I just want to know where's the realms of normality. And so obviously you're saying that if there's a hefty profit margin there, like a big chunk of money, which can be, maybe it's a very clever project, then you might give them a greater share than what we would otherwise do, which makes sense.
Absolutely. I think it comes down to what's in it at the end.
Look, as a thumb rule, I wouldn't want to do any kind of development management unless we're making at least 20 grand a pop. But that is, at this stage, with our no money down deal, we both got 20% equity in the project, but we got nothing. And not only that, we had to keep the project alive with no money in our own pocket.
Effectively, we had to work.
So you took 20% of the profits, but you only got the money at the end of the deal.
At the end.
Not only that, at the end, when the money came in, the principal went back, the lender was paid out. The principal went back to the investors, interest went back to the investors. We paid them their share of the profit, and then what was left, we got it. So after all the debt's gone, lender's gone, they've been paid back their principal. They've been paid an interest on it,
right.
And then whatever is left is actually distributed in terms of profit. That's in terms of profit holding. So whatever shareholding that you got in there, it's split on that. Now we agreed to do that because we were desperate. Like we were really desperate at the time. Someone who's not desperate, like at this stage, somebody came to me and said, "Look, you do this, and we'll give you 40% equity." I won't work for free because the project is 2 years away, and we've got to put in 2 years of work to be able to get to that stage. So I would want, if I'm experienced, which I am now, and if there are cash flow issues, I've got to take out the scarcest thing that we've got now is our time. It's it is our time because there are so many things that need to be done. People think that developers, they put in their money and then they sit back. Absolutely not, because we have our soul. We've actually signed our soul to all the banks.
A lot of the times, what we do say to people, money is not the only thing that has value. You've got to know who you are, what you're capable of. And that has a value,
Yes.
Like in our situation, I know the value of our expertise. So when somebody questions or wants to know, well, why, are you making X amount or X, Y, Z, my hand doesn't shake there, Ashley. You know what I mean? I'm very firm on, that, because people have this mentality that because I've got money, I've got everything. But I've seen a lot of fools lose their money, simply because they haven't got that ability to recognize, what is of value. And somebody that is offering you 60-40 doesn't see what is of value, just sees what I can get. And that's, you'll never do a no money down deal with smart people and diligent people, with that sort of formula, because at the end of the day, you've got to say, you've got to put yourself in that person's position and say, well, what's in it for me? And you stay there, you stay in that realm,
in his shoes,
all the way to the end, and then you'll see what's left, and if it's worth it, you'll put it together. But you can't go in, like I was saying earlier, with some rigid strategy. We only work with 60-40. We did a deal where we were asked the question where we had, I think it was 20% of the project, and the people said, well, what about if you don't deliver or we don't get exactly what your feasibility is saying? Well, our answer to that was, we don't get our percentage. In other words, we're prepared to back it and say to people, well, okay, if it's if it doesn't hit the mark, we're the first ones to lose, not you.
So it's like a project would offer them, let's say, 30% return on equity or something like that. But what we do is we actually seal it. We say, look, 30% is a good case scenario, bad case scenario, I don't know, maybe 20-25% or whatever. But here's the thing, you will make minimum 20% return on your equity. Now, whether we lose our builder's margin or whether we lose our development margin, we've got to deliver and give them minimum 20% no matter what. So, and first of all, I won't bring a project to them which only has 20% to begin with. You know what I mean? That return on equity has to be at least 40-45% plus, because when you offer that and you actually giving them all the upside and you are sealing the downside, that look, upside is all yours, but if shit hit the fan, you'll still make 20%, because the first thing that's gonna evaporate is our development management fee, and the next thing that's gonna evaporate is our builder's margin. So we say that, and a lot of people are flabbergasted. We have this investor who's doing a project with us, and he did a syndicate up in Brisbane, and every investor, he was telling us that, and they are big developers, I don't want to take any names, every investor lost money, and the developer, she walked away with $800,000. She, behind their back, she went and sold the owner's corporation for $150,000. Nobody knew about it. Now that's the first rule.
Yeah.
Your number one goal is to look after your investors.
Yeah.
They come first. It's all them, and that's what Sam said. If you step into their shoes and see how it feels, and that is the only way you'll be able to do no money down deals.
And start with something that you can deliver, that you're confident of delivering. Don't go for something that's 2 years away. Look, we did, and we will, and we'll always will. But that'll come with experience. But the name of the game is to deliver. And you as an economist actually would know that Australia has seen many ups and downs over the decades. Okay, it's had those 20 odd years, of continuous growth. But before that, I remember a story about Louis Grollo when he first came and what he was doing. Now, one of the biggest companies in Melbourne, one of the biggest developers in Melbourne, and the secret to his success was there was not only was there not any no money down deals, there was no money at times, and his secret was basically people knew him. He had a big network of people that actually knew him, knew the guy, knew that he would always deliver, knew he was a person of his word. And so he could draw on those resources, those people, and always bounce and always get up in the worst of times. And everyone as an individual needs to be like that, okay? We're not a conglomerate. We're not this super huge tier one builders or companies. No, I'm Sam, and there's Amber, and there's you, Ashley. But all those principles still apply. At the end of the day, people will always do business with people. It doesn't matter what the numbers say, and it doesn't even matter if you lose at times.
People they know, trust, and like.
Absolutely. So, there's a lot to it, but the best part about it is it's a lot of fun.
There are four main ingredients for deal making, and the number one is that either you've got what they want, so someone who's got a lot of money hasn't got any time, and you've got a hell of a deal for them. You've got the deal of the lifetime, let's say. So that actually improves your circumstances, and or their circumstances are such that what you present or propose to them has the best possible outcome for them.
All right. So there it is.
Yeah.
Done. Because I need to go. This was a very... It was an impromptu meeting, but look, good luck, everyone. Good luck.
All right. Anybody else who wanted to ask a question before Sam says goodbye? And
3, 2, 1. You didn't press the button. I'm out.
I'll go Shane. Hang on 1 second. Shane's here.
Shane.
You've met Shane.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, Sam. Right on the buzzer, Sam. Look, just picking up, if you could really briefly from what Ashley said, let's say that I go to an experienced developer such as yourselves, and I have borrowing capacity to settle on a block of land.
Yeah.
I have a deposit that I can put down, but the borrowing capacity to fund a residential loan. That then I say to you, look, could you go ahead and do all the work to get the development approval and to manage the whole building and construction process,
Yep.
to take it to fruition. At the end, our exit strategy is going to be sell all the units and split our monetary profit percentage-wise. But I'm going to be the silent partner, but I'm going to put in all the equity and all the borrowing capacity for the residential loan.
Shane.
In that situation, what would we be looking at split-wise percentage?
Look, Shane, you're pitching a no money down deal to us. So you're off the you're off the block already. Look, again, you see, even when, and this is a real live, you might say, discussion of a no money down deal, the best way to let's say continue this conversation is saying, okay, he's someone who's prepared to put money down, who's prepared to who has the borrowing capacity, and now your question is, well, how do we do this? Well, the first thing we need to do is, let's look at it. Let's do the feasibility. Let's do all the work that it takes to find out potentially what's in it. Now, and then you'll say, look, Shane, are you happy with this? And we get that. And that's what the crux of it is there, and you'll look at it and say, yep, I'm happy with that. And we'll look at it and say, that's good enough for us. And that's how you'll continue. It's very, I know I've really shortened the process. It's a lot of work to go from what you've just said to getting that deal realised. But what you are doing is probably smart in one way, because you're saying, well, okay, I've got this and I've got that and I've got the capacity to do X, Y, Z. But like I was saying earlier on, introduce that element that you can't. Let's say if I'm not a baker, I'm not going to buy a bakery. And if I do buy a bakery, I want to make damn sure that I've got a baker in there that knows what he's doing. And so that's effectively what you're doing right now. And to answer your question, whatever that percentage and share would be, it has to be good for both, because that's essentially what a no money down deal is.
You've got to agree, we've got to agree. And not only that, Shane, as in the last 12 weeks, I've been saying the kind of people that we want to work with and everything. We usually have a casual meeting first. You get to meet the full team, and it goes to anybody, not just Shane. If you want to come along, we actually launched this service called Property Mogul, where we do all the hard yards for you. We find the deal, we do everything. And if anyone's interested, they can go through propertymogul.net and click on the Property Paradigm webinar. It's like it happens every night, and you guys can register for it and watch the full webinar, understand how we work. We show how we work, and by all means, if 5 of you want to come together, we actually have a project that I was going to do a syndicate on. I think in the next couple of weeks we'll have we'll have the information memorandum as well for the project. And but it's for our property mogul members, because we already have a few members. They're ready to do the investment and everything, and that's why we ask them, how much have you got, all these things, just to mentally have a total in our head that that's the size of the project that we can bring to the table, and that's what that deal's got to look like, so that when we find that deal, we know that Shane's gonna do it, or XYZ's gonna do it, or they can be part of this project. So if you're interested in something like that, check out propertymogul.net, go into Property Paradigm webinar, and we discuss all the projects that we've done, and we show all the return on equity on all different projects, the duration, and how you could be part of all of this. So, and as I said, Shane, there will be no deal until you're happy with it and we're happy with it. So it just depends upon the size of the deal.
Yeah, because Amber, I was looking at it in two ways. One, much like following on a bit from what Ashley was saying, one as an investor, but also for someone who's also skilled up as a developer. What would I, if I was doing the work, how would I pitch it to someone wanting to invest in my project?
See, Shane, you've got to see how much. You've got to look at the total, what's in the project, and are they going to be happy with what you're going to offer them. So this is what the fine thing is. And at the same time, you also look at, is this worth my time, that I'm going to do all this work and just get that much? So the moment you reach that or find that sweet spot, you'll have a deal.
Yeah, but all right.
But let's say, let me say something that Sam said at the start of the this discussion, where if I said, okay, Shane, you put 200,000, and in 12 months time I'll give you 25% return on your equity, would you do it? Where else could you make 25% on 200,000? I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't give you the money from my own pocket, but I'll show you, this is the project, that's the feasibility, that's how I arrived at the feasibility, everything that I have discussed with you in the course. If you work with us, you'll see everything that I've discussed is exactly what we do with every client. And I'll show you the project, what it makes. I'll back everything, how we think. I'll show you the worst case scenario. I'll show you the good scenario. And if you're happy, only then you move forward.
Well, if for those who can, if we can even have a get together here one day, we can. But if there's any other questions, you let me know, because Sam's got to go. It's almost 8 o'clock, and I've got to go through a lot of material. Yeah.
So say goodbye to Sam, and we will continue with our class.
I'm feeling the love, people. I'm feeling the love. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Amber.
Thanks, Sam.
No worries.
Okay, we've got so basically we've got four ingredients for deal making. You have something that they want. Their circumstances are such that what you present or promise to them has the best possible outcome for them. So if you can present a project to them that it's a no-brainer for them, and they say, look, this is the best scenario that I could be in, there is a very good chance that they will do a project with you. The other thing is that if they know more, and what do I mean by that? The thing is, you've sat through the course, you spent the last 12 weeks trying to understand everything. You invested time, you invested your energy in understanding all of this. You now have a lot more knowledge than somebody who doesn't know anything about property development. All they've heard is that property developers are cheap and they will rob me of my money, or they've heard just horror stories from their friends and family. So you've got to, when you are talking to them, you'll be able to pick up at what stage of awareness they are at in terms of property development. There could be some people who already have done a few projects already and they are experienced, and you don't have to explain them too much because they understand the whole process. But if there are people who haven't done all of that, it is your job to actually educate them on the entire process, and you got to do it very patiently and without and without really having an attitude about it. You know what I mean? You always have to be willing to explain them again and again and again to be able, and it takes time. It takes many different meetings for them to be able to understand how this works. A lot of people market no money down deals as if, you know, if I haven't got money and a lot of people can come in and just do the deal. It doesn't actually come together like that. Many years ago, when vendors didn't have enough knowledge about how everything was going to pan out, or what's the potential in their land, yeah, you could do the deal like that. Or you've got acres and acres of land and you've got no idea how to do the subdivision or anything. And that's what Stockland and Mervac and Australand, all these big massive land development companies, they do that, and they go into newly zoned sites with farmland and everything, and they go and do deals with vendors where they throw in the land and then they go and do the development, do the work, and then sell the land and without actually settling on them. And they do it all the time, but it's massive scales. But when it comes to smaller boutique sized developments, it's very rare that these days vendors do not understand what's the potential of their site. So it won't be like, oh, I'll throw in the land and you go and, you know, get the DA and we go half. No, everybody understands what their land is worth. So when you are talking to them, just make sure that you figure out which awareness level are they at. Are they still trying to find out what's going on? Or if they've understood what everything is all about and they are considering what they're saying, or they've got different preferences of the way things should look like or work or pan out on, and are they at the action stage where they're ready? I know I have my bank manager that I deal with. He's been sitting on the fence for a while. He's been wanting to do a project, but it's going to take his time. He keeps asking me questions about how this, and I know that he's intrigued. But when would he be ready? Maybe he wants me to turn over a few more projects, have more experience, but that doesn't mean that he's not in it. Maybe his awareness level or his action stage is maybe 6 months away, or maybe 3 months away, or maybe 12 months away. So you need to ascertain where they are at in their journey or in their level of knowledge. Also, you got to reduce fear. See, the first thing that I told Shane was that, not Shane, but I told you guys that if we gave you all the upside and we stopped your downside and said, look, no matter what happens, you'll still make 20% development, return on equity. So have I actually stopped your downside? How does that make you feel? Because I've just put a full stop to the amount of loss that you can make. So you can only lose on your profit, but you can't lose on your capital. So okay, you might not, instead of making $40, you make $20, but you're making $20. It's not like you started off with 100 and you were left with 80. So that's what we try and do. And if you're genuine, and if you believe that the project that you found is genuine, you'll have no problem doing that. We've never had this issue doing that at all. They've got to trust. They basically got to trust and believe in your credibility. That means you've got to work hard. And I've actually said this many times throughout the course that you got to be very thorough, no pie in the sky. back what you say with market research. You got to read more, do your homework. You should be aware of everything that's going on in the industry that's related to you. You got to leverage off consultants. You got to a report from a professional, back it up. Known builder, track record. We've actually discussed these in far more detail already. So let's keep going. Okay, so let's look at equity. Okay, we've got debt funding that comes from a lender. And then we got equity. And what is equity? Equity is the money that we put in. It could come in form of cash, or it could come in from an offset account, line of credit, whatever, whoever's got. So that's the main equity that's the hard money that goes in into the project. So that means your cash is at risk. It could be developers, stakeholders, and you got to value. And what you got to make sure that this is the equity by definition is actually the value remaining in the property after all debt and other charges in the property are paid out. So that's what the equity part is. But let's look at different sources that you can create that equity or reach out to. Can you reach out to friends and family? I didn't have any. And especially friends, they wouldn't want to put any money with me. So I actually just networked. I just went to every networking property meeting that I could. I started talking about property, then I got into a project, then I started talking about the project, then I started giving them an overview of how property development takes place. And suddenly I became the go-to person to do that. I was good at numbers, so I could do feasibilities really well. And people would call me and find out, does my project work or it doesn't work. And they used to verbally tell me the numbers. And at the time, I had the time to actually address these questions. Business associate, people who work with you, finance brokers, financial planners, private money. It could come from, like, for example, one of you could find a really killer deal, package it really well, and raise money from the rest of the group to be able to do the project. And of course, the rest of the group is going to say, look, let Amber check it. And I'll say, look, yeah, go ahead. And it's all good. That gives you a lot of confidence that, yes, XYZ can do this project because Amber's checked it. So, and that person is now raising private money from all of you. So there's a lot of money with accountants and lawyers, but unfortunately, the money that comes from lawyers comes at a very, very high interest rate, 18%, 19%, and so on. And I'd rather not do a project than borrow money from a lawyer. Absolutely. No matter how lucrative that project is or how sure that project is, I'd rather not do a project than borrow money from a lawyer to do a project. Syndications. What's a syndicate? Syndicate is when a lot of people like you come together and they want to do a project. The first couple of projects that you do, no problem. You guys can come together and do it. But if, let's say, one of you keeps soliciting other investors to come and invest in the project after the two projects, after your first two, ASIC's going to start looking at it. And that's why now we go to somebody who's got an AFSL license. They vet the deal. They put the information memorandum together based on the information that we provide. They vet all the projects. Then they also interview the investors who are going to come into to do the investment. And once they say okay, only then your money can be accepted. It's not like I've got 100,000 and that's my last 100,000 and I haven't got anything. Chances are in the interview they won't accept your money. So you're allowed to put the money into their trust account. It doesn't actually come to us. It goes into their trust account, and you'll be issued shares. But they will do an interview process with you, with whoever's coming in, to be able to understand your level of comfort. And then they need to make sure that you are aware of all the risks that are involved and all the things that could go wrong. In fact, the information memorandum will have a detail of everything, every possible risk, what we're going to do to mitigate it, what's the probability of that risk occurring, all those things are there. So property syndication is a direct property investment where smaller property investor with limited available capital has an opportunity to invest in commercial, retail, or industrial properties. So if, for example, if some of you came to us, it won't be like, here, give me the money, and here their shares are there, and you're part of the project. It won't be like that, because we are going to go and go to a AFSL license holder, get them to look at the project. They'll give us an information memorandum, and then after you clear the interview with them, then you can be part of the project. So that's what syndication is. And it becomes easier and easier to do a syndicate, because after a while, if you can find the deal, stack the project, show them the numbers, back what you're saying, you'll always have people who would want to come in and join. And that's what actually drove me, because there are more people with money than there are people who know what to do with the money. So property investment funds are there. There are quite a few funds. In fact, I've actually looked at setting up investment funds, but it has a lot of compliance. And not only that, I think for the sophisticated investor, we've got to raise about, there's still like a 75 grand to about 100 grand a year cost to actually maintain that. So not at the moment. We have looked into it, but maybe in the next few years, we might be able to do that. Joint venture partnership. So if all of you came together and did a project, no one's stopping you. And you can do a JV with anybody. You can find building contractors. My first project in Brisbane, that my partner ran out of money, not just little money, just about $250,000 he came short. And for 4 months, the project got stalled. And I kept saying, I'll do the project no matter what. I'll do the project no matter what. And finally, I went to the builder and I said, look, you're going to build this. We've already got a contract with you. Now, my partner short $250,000. Can you build this thing? And he offered us obscene amount of interest. But if there was no other option, I would have forced it on my partner to take that deal, because that 20% interest would have come in from his share, not my share, to be able to do the project. And I'm pretty sure that even then he would have still walked away with at least $300,000 in profit, even after paying 20% interest. So new and prospective immigrants, a lot of people move here who have a lot of money, and they want to invest in projects. Now, at the same time, they're also one of the hardest people to actually work with, because they don't understand and they're in shock and all of that. But I've found a lot of people who recently moved here are looking for investment opportunities, and quite a lot of people still do invest. This is the same thing. There are more people with money than there are people who know what to do with it. So let's look at sweat and free equity. So sweat and free equity is created when you actually add value to the land. See, when we sold the Fitzroy project, and there was a jump from $1 million to 1.3 million in terms of costs and all of that. It's it happened because we, instead of normally somebody would have got maybe 12 units on there, and with some creative designing and a lot of toing and froing with consultants and town planners and all of those things, we managed to actually, instead of getting 12, we managed to get 16. And that was the main thing that actually gave us that bump. And if you have that ability, so to look at a site and say, look, we can, if we do it this way, we can squeeze more units in. That means we can get more for land when we actually sell it, even if you don't build it. So at every stage, the value goes up. But for two townhouse development, it won't go up that much, because the vendor who sold you the land already knows that you can build two on it, hence the value is X. So but it happens when you are building 12 or more, or 12, 15 apartments and so on. So yeah, it's the more free equity you have, the less you need to inject in a project. So if you get a massive uplift after the DA process, valuation comes in higher, bank lends you 70% of the valuation. So if the valuation is higher, that means you need to put in less from your pocket into the project. Strategies, different strategies for creating sweat equity. Number one, you can generate fees like you guys were asking. If they want to get a fee for the development management fee. In Queensland, you can't put down a project management fee unless you have a Cert 4 or something like that in project management and construction. But a development management fee is different. Project management fee is purely related to construction side of it. And the development management fee is related to actually the full development, feasibility, finance, managing all of this, the stuff that I do and teach. So you can generate fees if you get really, really smart at looking at these deals and you learn nothing from the course and all you learned was to do the feasibility and to be able to look at a project and say, look, that's what I can do on this thing. You can get a spotter fee every day. I would pay $5,000 if somebody got a project to me and said, look, here's the feasibility. I've checked this, and this. Here's the report. I've done all the hard yards for you. And this project stacks up at this price. And the vendor's ready to do it. And if somebody came to me like that, there's $5,000 on the spot. I'll take that project. So, because good projects are hard to come by and we are always trying to put projects into pipeline. So that they come out different times of the year. You want to get the project procurement fee or spotter fee. Understand that how to find your next deal module, your due diligence. You need to your feasibility, your project report. That's all you need for this portion. If your project is viable, developers, builders, and investors will pay you the spotter's fee. And initially, when you present the feasibility, don't have the address over there. Just tell them this is what it is. And if they are interested, and you'll find out they can only cheat you once. They can't cheat you twice. And someone who's serious, if you've been to somebody who's serious, who does it on a consistent basis, they won't cheat you. Because they know that they will kill. We don't do these things with the agents because we want to make sure that the agents keep bringing us back the good projects. So, yeah. So what can you charge? It's all negotiable. 10, 15,000, 5,000, anywhere between that amount. You won't believe we just paid $4,500 for maven.com.au. We had mavendevelopments.com.au and we also had mavenbuilders.com.au, but we didn't have maven.com.au. And I was trying to get it. Somebody called me the other day. They said, $4,500 will give you maven.com.au, and we bought it because I wanted maven.com.au for our company. So, and if a project makes you $200,000, $300,000 in profit, anybody would pay $5,000, $10,000 for it, depending upon what the project is. Modification. Partner with a buyer's agent and strike a deal with them. So you can partner that. You can find a buyer's agent who you can partner with and do a deal with them. Financial feasibility fee. Initially, I've charged $1,000 to do financial feasibility. Now I don't, because I want to be involved in the project. If I'm spending my time doing numbers on it, if somebody comes and offers me $1,000 to do the feasibility, I don't do that. I don't get involved in their business anymore. But initially, I did. I made $4 or $5,000 just by doing feasibilities for different investors in the networking group that I was in. Development management fee, different to project management fee. Project management fee must be under construction. Scope of works is very important. You will, in your scope of works, you'll put in site that you will go out and identify the site, your due diligence, your concept development, business case development, which would be risk identification and management, and financial feasibility. How are you going to structure the project? The procurement strategy. How are you going to actually settle on it? What kind of settlement terms are you going to have? Legal document management. You'll have to engage and liaise with all the consultants. Obtain planning and building permits. Drawing and documentation, permits, reports, tendering, all that is part of your scope. If you want to charge a development management fee, this is all part of your scope. And a lot of it you can actually get your architect to do that and get the information from the architect to be able to put all of these things together. Initially, the first project that I was doing, and I charged $11,000 to do the report, and then I got paid 10 grand to take it to the DA. Once the DA was in, I got paid another 10 grand, and that was my first project too. But I acted like I knew everything, and where I didn't know anything, I sat with the architect and picked his brain to figure out what was going on. And I've never been shy of admitting what I know or what I don't know, because I don't know what I don't know, and I'm not scared to admit it. But what I do know really well. So yeah, I don't give out misinformation unless I'm totally sure about it. What you charge could be a fixed fee, 10 grand per townhouse. As I was saying earlier, we had a long discussion about this earlier. What is a fair thing to charge? Building 4 townhouses, and you wanna cut your teeth into this project, and you wanna manage it for somebody else. Start with 10 grand a project, 10 grand a townhouse, whatever you're developing. If they're developing 15 of them, they're not gonna give you 150,000, especially when you're starting out as well. So then you gotta lower your expectation. But if they are only doing 4, 5, maybe 40 grand is not, and especially if the project makes 300,000. There'd be anybody. I think that 40 grand is a fair price to ask. I wouldn't work for anything less. And but at 40 grand, when I was starting, 40 grand was awesome. I worked for 20 grand. Just to be able to get that experience. You're getting that experience at someone else's expense. You get to do it. And for me, it was always I get to do this thing, and I didn't care whether I was getting money or not, which was a foolish thing to do, because gosh, every time I went back home and every time the end of the month came and nothing came into the bank account, it wasn't a very pleasant sight. So percentage 1 to 7% depending upon the size of the project. So if your project is too small, you can charge up to 7%. But as the project starts going big in terms of TDC, in terms of GRV, the less percentage that you will charge. For example, if you want to do just 2 townhouses, we charge 50% development margin, if not 20. But we're doing 12 townhouses, and now we're going to charge maybe 7% builder's margin on that. Why? Because the project is big enough. The bigger the project, the smaller the margin is actually going to be. So, and you can fix your fee like that. And never feel that because it's your first, you should ask less. No, ask what is right for you. So much so that when you're working in the project, you don't feel that you're being taken advantage of. Because that's a very bad thing, because the moment you start feeling that you're being taken advantage of, halfway through the project, you'll lose that steam, you'll lose that drive, because that feeling of I'm doing all the work and he's going to make all the money and he's not even giving me X amount. You don't want that. So that's why I said that sweet spot between the two parties has to be met, because if they're happy and we're happy, it'll be a deal. So and you can have milestones, like Ashley mentioned, somebody you got to keep paying them every month. I don't think that happens in smaller projects, and if it does, then it seems that either the money partner, who's a silent partner, has a lot of money or doesn't know anything. Either of the two things. For smaller projects, you want to do it, tie that remuneration to achievements, to milestones. Okay, I get 10 grand to start off with, but when I reach the DA stage, after we've got the DA, you owe me another 15, and after I've got the building permit, you owe me another 10, and then when we start construction, you pay me 3 grand a month for 12 months. So that is a good way to actually put it. And you can say, look, when we start, I've got to start spending some time on it. So I take a nominal fee so that I know that you are committed. is 10 grand, and I'll take it to DA. Once I've reached DA, you give me another 10. Once I've reached the building permit, you give me another 10. Or once you've achieved your pre-sales, whatever you need. It just depends upon how and to what you are going to tie all of that with. Marketing and leasing fee. Developers and builders are allowed to sell their developments directly. But the downside of this is, first I'll tell you the upside. The upside is you hire an agent, you actually don't pay them anything apart from the listing fee, maybe $1,500 or $1,100 or something. And for smaller projects and everything, they won't see a dime until the project's finished, the sales have settled. That's when they get their commission. So you don't have to fund them. But when you are trying to sell your own development, you might be able to save on that commission and everything, but you got to have two things. One, you got to be able to spend 10, 15 grand, 20 grand on advertising, because you'll be selling it yourself. That means you'll be going to realestateaustralia.com.au and asking them to give you a developer's package. Once you've got a developer's package, in that package they will give you, it'll be starting from anywhere between 3 grand to up to 7 to 10 grand a month, and you got to sign up for a minimum of 3, 6, and 9 months and so on. And the longer you sign it up for, the cheaper it gets. But it's still money out of your pocket up front. But the second thing you need to know is to be able to handle the sales inquiries. When they come in, you should be able to answer all the questions. You should know what the specifications are by heart. If they ask you what oven you're going to put in, you should know the make, model, warranty, everything, because they come and ask all these questions. People who are spending $500,000, 650,000 on a property, they have the right to ask all these questions. They will ask you what is the floor made of, what is the tile, which company is the tile from, what is the thickness of the stone bench, what color paint are you using, can I change this paint and make it something else? You should be able to handle and tackle all of these things. Will I get my first homeowner's grant? Do I get off the plan stamp duty? It was a big kerfuffle. Agents didn't know, and even the lawyers didn't know as of 30th June 2017, when Victoria didn't offer. They've changed the rules that once the property is over 600k or something, there is no off the plan stamp duty, and over 700 there is none, and I think between 600 to 700 there's a sliding scale kind of thing. So that off the plan stamp duty is gone, thanks to APRA. So you should be able to answer all these questions. So that's number two, that these are the two downsides. But if you think that you can handle these two, which now we feel that we can handle, and now we are more and more projects that we are signing up, we keep counting the amount of cash that's going to leave the development in terms of commission. So we keep thinking that, why can't we actually sell it ourselves, have our own sales staff? Because if you add up the commissions from 2 projects, you can afford to pay 1 full-time sales staff and still have something left over. And that means that if you did 3 projects or 4 projects in that year, that's all that is bonus. So yeah, of course they also have different kind of bonus structures built into their KPIs and all that. So if you have those marketing skills and you can take on this work, you can actually charge a fee to the project for doing all that work. So if the agent charges 1.5% or something, you might charge 0.7%, which is still the cheapest than anywhere else, but you doing the work, you handling all of that. And if the project allows to, you can keep that commission. You tell them, look, if you hire an agent, it'll cost you 2%. You hire me, it costs you 0.7%. And I'll sell it. I'll manage the listing. You don't really need to manage the listing. You just put together the photos and what you want to say in a ballpark figure, in a ballpark way, and you email it to them. They come back to you with a revised copy, and then they put everything up for you. So yeah, but you need to be able to handle those inquiries that come in. You need to be able to answer your phone when it rings. You can also value add by rezoning, And for that, it actually happens on all the urban growth boundary areas where the urban growth has actually reached a boundary that's already been set, and it's tipping a point where council might just, if you gave them a proposal or something, you might get the land rezoned and go through the process. And the biggest uplift to land comes from rezoning. So imagine a commercial use block that suddenly was rezoned mixed. So now you could have commercial and have residential on it, and suddenly the value of the site was going to shoot up. So if you can manage to do something like that, that's great. I've got some resources that talk about the urban growth boundary that you can check them out. None of these resources are any resources that I'm showing you for the first time. We've discussed these when we were doing how to find your deal. You can do land subdivision. Land subdivision is pretty good if you do a JV with a landowner where you don't have to hold the land as such. But if you got the money to get the subdivision through, and I can tell you right now, subdivision at this stage for 500 square meter blocks in Melbourne or Victoria for that matter is anywhere between $60,000 to $70,000 a block. That means bringing in services to the block. And if you spend that $60,000 to $70,000 there and you've got the land for $50,000 or something, you're only paying $120,000 a block. You can do a JV with the landowner on this side, and on the other side you could have a JV with the builder. So they provide the land, and you can then repackage that as a house and land. What that means is that they settle on the land immediately, and then they go and get their construction finance to do the rest of the build with the builder, and you cash out by just taking out the land component profit on it and getting out of the project. And all you've done is facilitated everything, and the vendor gets the money, and the builder gets a project to build that they would have their margin already built into. So we know what a subdivision is. I don't need to explain what a subdivision is, but land subdivision is a very good example of creating sweat equity, because you do all the work and you leverage stuff off the land. So subdivisions are these JVs with landowners are most common in large parcels of subdivision. You got to obtain plans and permit or DA. Smaller sites, this uplift is not as great. The reason being, landowners sell. We've already discussed that. So, okay, let's look at JV with landowner. So what happens in a JV with a landowner? Always remember, it's never a JV with a landowner. ATO can create a lot of issues for the landowner in capital gains calculations. And to avoid that and keep it clean, you must create a new structure. So I'm doing a JV with a landowner, but it's not really a JV with a landowner, because what we are trying to do is they're going to set up an entity. That entity is going to do a partnership with us, with our entity. And when we go and do the development and everything, what's going to happen is they're going to throw in the land so we can go and get the construction loan. We're going to throw in our land because our lands are adjoining each other. And the land is actually in their name, in their personal name. But what we are doing is we're putting a structure in the middle between the land and the development. There's going to be a structure. So they have one structure, we have another structure. We combine the two structures. We have an ABN for the development entity, which is a partnership. And that partnership is going to go get finance and all of that. And when the bank comes in, the bank's going to say, okay, I'm going to have security over your land and I'm going to have security over your land. But we're not transferring any land out. Land is still in their name. And to cover them on the capital gains issue, we're going to get a valuation of like a formal valuation, so that before they actually got into the development, that's what the land was valued at. So their capital gains tax is from the current value of the land plus any uplift. Okay. landowner supplies the land and you put in the sweat equity. So in that scenario, you can use land as equity to get finance, which is your no money down deal. But in our scenario, what we're doing right now is that we're going to settle on our side of the block. They already have a block that they own outright. And then we're going to marry the two entities to be able to do the development. Landowner can realize higher value for land, and they can otherwise. Only works if the landowner wants more for their land and is willing to wait. So this JV will only happen if they don't want instant profit. So most vendors, if they've come on the market already, there was a need that brought them on the market, which basically means that they're not in the mood to do a deal with you. So you'll be able to pick up land that's not on the market. That's the land that you'll be able to do a JV with. And if somebody does come on the market and you are about to buy the next door, there's no harm in knocking their door and just saying, hey, I'm looking at doing this, and potentially I can give you more than what your land is worth today in exchange for time. And you could offer them extra 50K if they wait for 12 months or 16 months, because then you can go and get your DA and everything. And if your DA comes in time, you don't even have to settle on it. You can flick it. You can just sell it with plans and permit. They can also opt to roll over their profits into townhouses or apartments that will eventually be developed and held by them as long-term investments. So basically the mechanics are: landowner puts in the land, you obtain the permit, use land to organize the construction loan, and at the end of the project, the landowner, instead of getting cash for their land, gets townhouses and apartments. So there are 10 steps for executing this thing. You got to put the deal together first. You can transfer the land in a new entity, unless of course this already is in another entity. So in our scenario, I'm not transferring it in another land, because the moment it transfers out into anything, there's a stamp duty implication, in which we don't want to do. You can get a valuation done, decide on the shareholding, pay the stamp duty, give the landowner the first mortgage on the land. Now, if you give them the first mortgage on the land, they still need to be aware of the fact that when the construction lending starts, they can't have the first mortgage on the land. So, I would not recommend that you should be do not transfer the land in a new entity, because you don't want to pay the stamp duty on this thing. Have a JV per unit holders agreement between the two parties. Always have that. It should spell out exactly what's going to happen, how much money, what are their obligations, what are your obligations, who's responsible for what, because no matter how well you know them, you don't know what's going to happen, or circumstances might change where they might just decide something totally different that they haven't decided before. You go and get your DI, use equity in land to obtain construction loan, develop and sell the project. The bank or the lender is paid out from the settlement first. Landowner is then paid out from the land, from the remaining settlement funds. Profits are distributed as per agreed shareholding or unit holding. So basically the first thing is the lender. Once the lender's out, you still have to pay them for the land, because whatever value you decided that's what the value is, it should go into your JV agreement. And based on that, they've got to be paid out for the land first, and then whatever is left is then distributed as per shareholding. Now, if that happens, you can potentially start the project a lot quicker, because if the land is unencumbered, there is less equity or less debt that you need to cover. in terms of pre-sale. So if whatever this is the same example that we were discussing earlier, that you just have to come up with the total borrowing that you're going to borrow. Make sure the equity between your land and your pre-sale covers the bank for that borrowing. So long as that happens, you can start construction. You will get your construction finance, because then it is purely based on the project. I was talking to my bank manager, and he said that banks always looking for that exit strategy. And if you haven't got if you have the serviceability, bank might even allow you to start construction, because bank knows that you can service this debt, even if you don't sell anything towards the end. But if you haven't got the serviceability, no hard feeling, it might take a little bit longer, but you go and get your pre-sales, whatever you're required, so that the equity of land plus the value of the pre-sales more than covers the debt, and you can do the project without the serviceability. You can also do a staged acquisition, and that happens on big parcels of land where you say, okay, stage 1, we're going to pick up 20 lots, develop them and sell them first, and then we're going to pick up another 20 lots, and then so on. So it's very common in land subdivision. And so instead of acquiring a lot of hectares of land in one hit and blocking all your cash in all this land and having no cash left to actually do the development, developers usually do that in portions. Important factors for you to consider when you go and do a JV with a landowner. Check if their site has any debt on it. If their site is unencumbered, fantastic. That's the best case scenario. And the only reason we are doing the JV with this neighbor. Sorry, just taking a sip from my coffee. So the only reason we are doing that is because they are their land is unencumbered, and if it's 20% debt or 10% debt, then it's still fine. But if they've got like 80% debt on the property, or even 60-70% debt, there's no point doing that, because then you have to come up with that extra bit of cash to be able to cover that. Does the site already have a permit? What does the landowner want, and what do you pay? And when do you actually pay off the landowner? So the landowner inevitably will ask, when do I get paid? And they need to understand that they can only get paid when the project is right till the end. Granting the developer development rights over the land, you can have a development agreement, you can have a call option. An option allows one party the enforceable right to buy something at a future time at a particular place. Usually the landowner will get a higher value for their land in exchange for time. Landowner providing vendor finance. Believe it or not, I bought my house on vendor finance. I was renting the same place in Mount Waverly, and my landlord his name was John. He still is, and I'm still very good friends with him. And he was a landlord. He used to come and mow the lawn, and every time he came in, I used to invite him over for a cup of coffee. We used to, that many years ago, I actually used to smoke. So we used to sit together, have a cigarette together, and we became friends, and he helped me out so much. Yeah, I'm still friends with him. And he used to be a truck driver, made 5 properties. And I was living there, and I said to him that, look, I haven't got the money right now to buy this, but I've got 150,000 that I can give you right now. And if you vendor finance it for me, I'll give you monthly installments. Instead of me going to the bank, why don't you take it? So I did a deal with him. And for 3 years, he vendor financed me. And after 3 years, I got a refinance from the bank and then paid him out. And never missed a single payment. We are still friends. I live in his house, and I think last year I called him over for dinner. And once I build the house, I'll call him over for dinner again. So yeah, Negotiate to pay 50% now, and the rest can be financed by the vendor. It's all open to negotiation. So how are you going to do it? It just depends. You could say, look, I only have 50, and if he agrees or she agrees, you have a deal. They might say, look, let me make some money on the money that's already locked into my property, which I can't access. That's a good thing for a lot of people, especially people who are closer to their retirement age or something. You say, look, I'll give you 200,000 now, because in vendor finance, the title will never change hands. The title will remain in their name until they are paid out completely. So they are totally risk-free. So if you stop paying, you just basically lost the block of land. But of course, there are agreements in place to handle all of that. But you can do a deal, and this is exactly what I did. You can agree on a suitable interest rate. So if for example right now, something like this that's happening right now, if you leave your money in the bank is what? Maybe not even 2%. You're getting 1.5, 1.75, something like that, which is really nothing. If somebody went to somebody and said, look, I'll give you 100K now, why don't you vendor finance me? And then you basically say, whatever money that I owe you, I'll give you installments. You have to put a full schedule of the payments that you're going to make, and you make those payments. And instead of they making 2% on the money that's already locked in the property, which they haven't got their hands on, they can now, they still have the title in their name, and they can start making 5%, 6%, or 7%. So you could be in a situation where the bank won't lend you the money, but you know that you have the money and you can do this. So you can go in and do a deal with the landowner saying, let me live in this house and I'll do whatever. And then you can renovate the house, sell it after 2 years, because the moment you sign the contract, that's the price that you have to pay to them. If the value goes up during that time, that uplift is yours. So yeah. And if they get better interest on their money, some people might just like that cash flow. You give them $2,000 extra every month, and they've suddenly got this cash that they never had. And it's a win-win situation, because you still owe them the full money. It's not like you're going to take the property and run away. What happens if the landowner requires cash to move on? So you would get a 12, 18-month option. You can negotiate the terms, and you might not even be able to strike a deal if they want to, sell their property in 30 days or something. So there are no hard and fast rules with this. So, okay, so let's look at the JV with the money partner. The way that works is we've got a lot of people. I actually got a call from this guy from country Victoria. I won't say his name, not that you guys know him, you'll never know him. But he calls me and he goes, I've seen your material and everything, but I've got a trick that you don't know, and I can make money without using any of my own money. So I said, okay. And I said, look, I don't do finance business. I'm not in finance. I want to be, but I'm not in finance. I do developments, and that's all I do. And he said, look, the trick is you go and get an offset facility on your house or whatever. You borrow the money from the bank, and then you actually give it out on interest to somebody else at a higher interest rate. So if I go and borrow money at 4% and then I lend the money to a development for 10%, I'm making 6% on the money that's not even mine. So that's what he was talking about. So a lot of people do that, and that's where you'll find the money partners, because they have their houses are paid, or they're sitting on the line of credit or whatever. The facility is there, but they haven't got the means to do anything with it. And if they see an opportunity that they can make 6% on the money that's not even theirs, it's borrowed money or it's sitting idle, not doing anything, they'll be happy to do that. And you can give them higher interest rate. They make a buck, and you can still make the project work at a higher interest rate. It's a win-win situation. There are people who paid off their house. They can get equity from there. You can provide the sweat equity, and they can provide the cash. You bring in the expertise, they provide the cash. You bring in a deal, they invest with you. You manage the development, and they provide the cash. So there are all these different kinds of scenarios that you can have with them. But there are different things that you got to be careful of in this as well. They're gonna inevitably say that they want to be they don't want to be liable for the loan, because when you go and get your construction loan, someone's got to be the director. Now you must make this clear to them that if they are the shareholder, they don't have to guarantee the loan. But if they are the directors, they've got to do. They've got to be part of that. Now, even then, if they are putting in the money but they don't want to be liable for it, they are still in a way putting their money up front, and you're not putting any money in. It's only fair for you to go in as the director if they are scared of doing that. So, but have that discussion with them. You got to beware of all the different personalities. Stay away from negative people. Stay away from nitpickers. Be aware of finger pointers. The glue that binds us at Maven, we are 3 partners. The glue that binds us at Maven is that we've had many disasters while construction, delays because of X, Y, or Z, and not once have we actually pointed a finger and screamed at each other saying that we lost all this money because of you, or you let the deal go, or you didn't handle this. There's no blame game here. We always work as a team, and if somebody can't, if we weren't able to do it, there are no hard feelings. We just do everything as a team. So there are no finger pointing that happens at Maven, and that's why we choose our investors very carefully. That they've got to be at the same mental kind of level with us. If we see that there's a guy who's just who has an I team, and the only person is the I team is himself, and it's all me, myself, and I, me, myself, and I. We tend not to do a project with them at all, no matter how much money, no matter what amount of money they've got, because eventually we're gonna part ways, and it's not gonna be good. We don't want to be in a project where halfway through the project they're pointing fingers at us and all of that. Yes, of course there are unforeseen problems, but we are there to solve them. It's not like we are chickening out or going away. But if you face a problem, you solve it together. You got to explain them the risk. You got to define the shareholding in the project early on. Ask them in writing to get their own independent legal advice. Always say that, because if you have more knowledge they don't, they can always play that card where they didn't know any better and you took them for a ride. So always send it to them via email or via text. You should see your own independent legal advice, or you should go and see your accountant or your lawyer to be able to make a decision on this. Have a JV agreement in place. Always define the scope of works. What happens when either party does not fulfill their obligations? It must be in there. Make sure you drive the project. So don't give a steering wheel in their hand if they haven't driven before. You drive the project because you know what's going on there, the things that you need to do, and go on. You should be the one making the decisions. By all means, be transparent and involve them in all the decision making process, but keep it very business like, in the sense all your decision should be based on pure business sense at all. So be transparent and caring. Report on time. Every time you report on the time you said that you're going to report, it gives you a plus like it's like an, you know, iPhone Plus. You get a plus. So every time that happens, it's another star on your shoulder. Anytime you show up when you say you're gonna show up, same thing happens. Anytime you deliver what you said you're gonna deliver, same thing happens. And with all these pluses, the more pluses that you're gonna get, the more they're gonna do the project with you, and the more they're gonna be telling other people to do the project with you as well. Give them the reasoning behind your decision. Anytime you say, "Oh, I decided to go with this," why? Why did you decide to go with that? What were your reasoning behind that? Anytime you'll explain yourself more, they will appreciate you more, rather than then they will not think that you are the one calling the shots. They will not think that, oh, he's now dictating everything and I'm supposed to follow him. So you don't want them to actually feel that you don't want them to feel that you are calling the shots. You are calling the shots, but you got to engage them. See, a leader will not dictate. A leader will lead, and that's what I'm asking you to do. When you're doing something like that, you're actually leading them and making them money as well. It is right. It is their right to know everything and ask for reports. So if they ask for reports and they pick your brain, it's their right to do that. They're actually invested money, and you've got to deliver on that. You must provide them with information without them asking for it. If they give you a call and ask for a status report, you're not doing your job. They should never be calling you. You should be calling them, and you should be reporting to them even before they ask for it. If they do that, you're getting all those pluses that we were talking about earlier. In any circumstances, never make them feel unimportant or foolish. Never ever do that. You might know a lot, but never ever make them feel unimportant or foolish. You are benefiting from this venture as much as they are. So treat your investors and money partners with respect. If they don't know a process or don't understand something, be willing to explain them in a polite way. Have patience with them. Don't be cocky. And I see that happen with a lot of people that I know who've now turned over a few developments, and they've got a different air to them, and I don't understand why. That, you know, just because they made a bit of money, that doesn't give them the right to be cocky. With any of us, we might joke about these things amongst the three of us at Maven, but with our investors, we are very cautious to never ever come across that we are trying to show off or we're trying to do all of that. And even you won't believe, even when our investors are not there, all we are talking about is we need to make sure that these guys make money because we want them to keep coming back to us. So it's always like that. Work out solutions to problems as a team. They should feel that they are part of them. Always address everything as we, not I. And I've been guilty of this. I will not say that I'm a saint. I've been guilty of this. I've been doing I for the first few years, and it's only now that I've become we. But everybody learns, and if you are that I kind of person, change. See, if you talk about we more, then it's a different way of thinking, and you'll find people are more receptive to we than I. So agree to disagree. So don't get into a fight or an argument. You are going to be married for the life of the project. So it is best and cheaper to work through the problem rather than invite each other to a gunfight where you say, oh, you signed this and you were supposed to do that, so let's take out our guns and shoot each other. The only people who win in that scenario are the lawyers, and none of you are going to get anywhere. So solve the problem. Once in a project's got to finish. That's it. That is your number one goal. You have a fight with each other, no problem. We'll deal with it after the project's finished. That's number one goal. So yeah, so we've got, okay, JV with the builder. So if you know a builder who is who does these developments, I actually got an email from a second tier builder who has $4 million and wants to do a 35-40 apartment JV with other developers who have similar amount of cash. But we didn't want to do apartments at all, so we didn't even look at it. But there was an email that was sent out. It went to a lot of databases only recently, in the last couple of weeks or something. And there are builders who would do that. So if you got $1 million or something, you can do a JV with the builder. They will provide the build, you will provide the site, and everyone's happy. They get a job that they didn't have, so long as everybody makes money. So just make sure that your JV agreements and your method of calculation or the shareholding is fair, has to be fair. If it doesn't feel right, it seldom is. So you'll be able to feel that. So often builders are looking for work. Find a builder who can carry the construction and you can provide the land. Cross-pollination is allowed. You can have a JV with landowner and then a JV with the builder in the same deal. It just depends upon how you actually gonna manage both of them. And you can do that. This is what I was talking about when we were talking about land subdivision. As long as everybody wins. Private funding, you can borrow money at a flat interest rate. You can put together five people with $100,000 each. You got $500,000. One of my mentoring students in Brisbane did exactly that. Found a lady. She didn't want to do anything to do with the development. Went to her, set up a different entity. She put her money in that entity. That entity lent him the money at 5% interest or something. He got $500,000. He did his first no money down deal with a money partner. They used none of his own money. Went and got a DA. So yeah, use the development side as security. Make sure your private lender understands that during construction their security will switch from first mortgage to second mortgage. Now this always happens. So make sure that they understand all of that. So this is all about no money down deals. The idea here is a couple of things. You control the land to a certain point. So the thumb rule is you don't want to spend any money on the land until it is ready for construction. So the longer the settlement you can get and negotiate, the better it is. Use that time to go and get your DA. Use that time to go and get market ready. Use that time to get your marketing going. Use that time to get your pre-sales, so that by the time it comes in, so when you look at a deal, you'll have to match their needs, what their needs are. Do they want a short settlement, long settlement? What are they going to look at? If you think the project is really good, and if they say, look, 30-day settlement, I'll accept 800 instead of 900 right now because that's how desperate I am. You just made $100,000, so you should do whatever you can to actually come up with that $100,000, even if it's borrowing money for friends, family, calling everybody, leaving messages in different networks, and finding out if someone's in. And you'll find that a lot of people would come together. So delay the actual acquisition of the land as much as you can. Use that time to get your DA and then structure a deal with them so that it even if they, for example, didn't come for a ride or whatever. If you got, for example, let's say you went to a landowner who's not ready to sell at the moment, or who wants to sell but is not in a hurry. So you could do a deal with him and say, look, let's do a deal. I'll buy this block off you in 12 months time at this price, and you don't have to settle. I'll give you $50,000 now. I'll release the money to you as a deposit. Form 27, sign the form, release the money to them. They've got $50,000 to play with and think about for 12 years. Here's another thing. The moment you pay a deposit and you sign a contract, psychologically what happens in the vendor's mind is that the vendor's mind is actually spending that money that they've signed the contract for. So if I sign a contract with you guys for, let's say, 1.4 million, and you guys say, okay, subject to 30 days due diligence, I have to somehow go through those 30 days. But in the 30 days, in my head, I'm allocating what I'm going to do with that 1.4 million. In my head, I've already started spending it. Oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to take a break, or I'll buy that property, or I'll do this. And in 30 days time, I'm actually almost ready at 1.4. So at that time, you can throw in a like you could throw a spanner in the works, and say, look, it doesn't work, I want $50,000 less, or I want a longer settlement, or this or that, or whatever. There's a higher chance of then of the vendor agreeing with what you're asking at that stage. And this is pure psychology. This is not but property development is a lot about being an entrepreneur, than being a developer as well. So you have to be entrepreneurial. You have to push the boundaries. You have to try and find the deal. And the best part is that you do not stop looking. You keep trying to find a deal. How can I make this work? How can I make this work? If you keep asking that question, how, you will find an answer rather than, or it doesn't work. Okay, Will's got a question. Yes, Will.
Hi, Amba.
How are you?
How you going? Amba, a question with, just wanted to go over this one quickly. JV with landowner.
Yeah.
And here you had a setup that you said that you had the ownership of the land, and then you set up two different trusts, two different entities.
Yeah.
And the two entities are the ones that do the transaction. And
Yeah.
you were trying to avoid stamp duty by not transferring the title of the land to.
Yeah.
Can you just go over that quickly?
Yeah. So what it is I've got, let's say, A, B, C, and they hold the land, and then we have Maven here. Now Maven's already signed a contract to settle on a block of land. So what Maven's doing is setting up their let's call it Maven unit trust. Now what these guys are doing now is setting up a ABC family trust. Now these guys are not actually, they're not going to hang on, whoops. So these guys are actually not going to move their land here. So that's not gonna happen. But what we are going to do is we are going to tie these two together into a partnership. Just give me 1 second.
That's okay.
So these two will be tied in a partnership. So it'll be a Maven and ABC Family Trust partnership, and that partnership is actually going to have its own ABN number. It's nothing. It's that partnership will have its own ABN number, TFN number, and a bank account. So now, depending upon what our share is at the moment, it's 50-50. So what's going to happen with that is that we are going to put in 50% into this entity, and then they are going to put 50% into this entity. So this trust, for example, is going to do that. And just bear with me because these are a little bit fidgety things. Now, so we're gonna put in same amount of dollars here. So let's call them dollars. Now, but they have this thing called land, which is already sitting in there. So let's say this represents land in there. So this they have a land and we have to settle on our property. That means we're going to have a land, have a block of land. Now, what we can do is that even if I don't have the money for this, I can actually go to the bank and say, look, this is the entity that's going to develop both these blocks, ABC and that. So let's call it 123 XYZ Road and 345 XYZ Road. So there are two lands over there, but this land's got equity in it. So this is equity rich. Now I can either settle on this so that it's equal, but my JV agreement that ties these two things together and governs this partnership here dictates that it's going to be a 50-50 split. They're going to throw in their land because the thing is their land was shaped a very odd size, and if they were to do it on their own, they wouldn't be able to maximize and unlock their site. But now that we combine our site with them, they've managed to unlock their site. So it's going to be 50-50 all across the board. But what they need to come up is their value of the land that they're going to put in here, and we need to have a value of the land, which is, again, to keep the level playing field level, we're going to have the same value because they are adjoining properties in the same suburb. So now when I go to the bank, the bank will lend me, let's say this is the bank, and the bank will then give me the construction loan to this entity. But at the same time, the bank is actually going to put a first mortgage on this block of land. So let's call this and the bank is also going to put a first mortgage on this block of land.
And what I can see as well is that everything is linked, but we are not, the land is not getting transferred at all. But the bank recognizes that that we have the equity from that land, from ABC.
Yeah.
And we don't need to transfer it from any of the entities. The land can be, the equity can be on ABC, and the bank still recognizes this as part of the equity for the whole project, correct?
Correct. We have our own entity, Maven Unit Trust. They have their own entity, ABC Family Trust. They have the land in their personal name. They have the land in ABC's name. We are actually going to get the land in here. So actually this should have been here because this green tick represents the land. We're going to get the land here. But these two are tied together in a structure which is a partnership, which has an ABN. So any money that will come in here, based on the JV agreement and the way we've structured it, 50% is going to go to this, 50% is going to come here.
Okay.
Now we've determined what the value of this land is, so that after the bank's gone, we can then reimburse the land value to both the trusts first, and then whatever is left goes 50-50 again.
Okay. But can I look? This is, I guess, this is more of a personal scenario, and what's happening is that, look, I've got my auntie, and my auntie she's interested in doing a development at some stage. Now my auntie, she lives by herself in the property. She's got a property in Templestowe that is worth 1.5 mil, and the house is completely paid off, completely. She doesn't have any mortgage on it.
Will, I lost your sound. I lost your voice. Hello? Hello? Can anybody else hear Will? Because I can't hear Will. Hello? Are you here? Hello? Will? Hello? Hello? Okay, by the time Will comes back, is there anybody else who would like to ask a question? Will, when you come back, you gotta press the hand button again. Anybody else who would like to ask a question by the time Will comes back? Okay, then I believe that okay, Will's back. 1 second. Will, you there? Hello?
Please tell me you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you now,
Can you
but
hear me?
we lost you earlier. Yep, go on.
Oh my God, so stressful. Okay.
So she's got a block of land
so
which is
just-
1.5 mil and she's got no mortgage on it. How big is the block?
It is 700 square meters.
Okay, and how come you're not doing a deal with her now?
Because I was trying to I was trying to get some experience by myself first before going into her. I also noticed that her blog is on GRZ3, and when I first saw it, I thought, oh, it might be a bit more difficult to do it on GRZ3, and that's why I started looking at different properties to do it.
Not really.
First myself.
Have a look around on Google Maps. Check out if there are developments that have happened close by.
There is a couple that has happened a bit close by. The main thing that will worry me in this is how much we can build, but I can find out what we can fit. But also the neighbors. I know that the neighbors, they're not too. I don't think they will be keen into it. Plus, it's also a court. It's not a street. It's a court, so it's I don't know. It's like very family in the area. But I guess I can do my due diligence properly and find that out later on.
Go and see
go
and see an architect. Spend $200-300. Get them to do some schematics of what they can put on it. Based on that,
actually went and saw Ben. I met Ben and Vince.
Okay, Wardle.
From ArcSign. They're very good. I was getting them to do some sketches in one property. So they will be. I guess I can get them to do that for me.
Yeah, they are very reasonable, and for that size development, they are perfect.
Yeah, they're very good. Yeah. So in terms of the structure, how I will be structuring, because I remember we actually called an accountant, or I can't remember if we called an accountant or a lawyer, and I remember them saying that if we wanted to move the property into a trust, we will immediately pay stamp duty. We went like, oh, that's a no. We don't want to do that.
You can't move it. You can't move it.
Yeah, I guess we cannot move it because I don't want to pay like 115 and stamp duty or whatever it is. But in terms of the design, the diagram that you have right now on the screen, number 2, Maven, that's a property, correct? That's you with your property.
Yeah, that's in my trust.
In that case, it will be just me, unless, I don't know if, let's say, my auntie with the property, then we can set up another trust, and I can be a partner on that trust, and we can do this whole thing without transferring the land. Because I know that if I go to the bank with 1.5 on equity, let's say I can borrow 1 mil of it.
Does your auntie live in the property?
She does live on the property, yeah. She lives in the property.
And she wants to do the development, no issue with that?
Look, to be honest, she wants to leave the property to me at some stage, and she's very big into like owning your first property and so on. And I showed her what I was doing, and I told her, look, we can literally make a fortune out of that and can work for both of us, and you can live in a brand new house as well. And she's actually keen. Yeah, the only thing that was worrying her was her pension. She's going to be getting her pension in, I don't know, 3 years, and she didn't want this to affect her. But yeah, I guess that's another topic.
Yeah, look, if you make money, you gotta pay tax. It's there's no escaping that. So she'll have more money than she'll ever get in a pension, and with this, and
Yeah.
see by the time this develops and all or whatever happens, maybe for that year she doesn't get it, but once that year's passed and you've declared the income or whatever you paid your tax or whatever you wanted to do over there, after that the next year if you got no income you still get your pension.
Yeah, and look, whatever tax she will need to pay, I'm happy to pay that for her because she's making all of this possible. So I will be happy to cover. I don't want her to pay anything. I just want her to win, and I'm happy to cover that. You know.
See, in order to cover her, is that you can inflate the value of the land in your contract, but you basically settle on the. She's got to go and get a valuation or something, and you got to make sure that the valuation comes in as high as possible. So.
Yeah. Okay. You can. I guess you can also influence the valuation and so on. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is how I see it will happen. That your aunt's got land.
Okay.
She's got the land over here, and she's the owner. And you have your Will Pty Limited as trustee for Will Family Trust or whatever. You do a development management agreement with your aunt to do the development.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, your aunt's going to do the development. Now, before she does it, she needs to have a few things ready. Number one, things to consider. So the first thing that you need to consider is land value. So you can go and get a valuation.
Yeah.
The reason I'm asking you to go and get a valuation is because it's your aunt's PPR, which is your primary place of residence. So when you sell that primary place of residence at whatever value, you don't pay any capital gains tax. But in this scenario, even if she goes and gets the DA and everything, she won't be selling it. She will be doing the development. Because she'll be doing the development, you can't go and get the the DA and then value it and then use that valuation. That part you got to recheck with your accountant.
Okay.
So valuation, the question for you would be, in that valuation, before or after DA. So this you need to check with your accountant, because this is you're thinking from your aunt's side, because you don't want her to pay tax. That means if she inflates the value of the land or her share of the profit somehow is transferred into the land value, then she pays no tax. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Now, whatever is left, so let's say land value comes in, let's say $100 or something like that. So after that, there's a profit percentage or something that's left over there. So let's say there's another $100 left after that. What you are going to do is, in your development management agreement here, you're going to put in a fee for a higher amount, so that when you look at the land value and the feasibility on this side, there's not a lot of profit that's happened here, because this was an expense for the development that went into your pocket.
Okay. The expense of the development that went on my pocket, is that the cost of the land? Is that the cost of the land?
Your development management fee can be equal to half the profit. And what you can do is not really put in 50% of the profit of this, that, or whatever, because then it hasn't got a figure. What the lawyers want is a number over there. And what you can do is do your feasibility let's say the project has 400,000 or 500,000 in there, and you say, look, 250,000 is my development management fee, and have an agreement in place so that half of it comes to you, and then you can put in a success fee, or if you hit this bracket, or if you manage to get, so let's say you projected the profit to be 450,000, but somehow you managed to get 575. So how is that 75? How is that extra 125,000 split? That also you can stipulate in there. And that way, if you look at from your aunt's perspective, she doesn't pay any tax up until $100, which is the value of the land. So if the total profit was, let's say, 100, you've already taken 50. So she'll only be paying tax on the extra 50 that's left over there, not on the full 100, because the 50 went into your pocket. And from your pocket, you might give it back to her, or what you do is your business, and your accountant can guide you much better. You can legally gift her something, or something, so that way she doesn't. But always remember that 50 that will come into your pocket, somebody's got to pay tax on it. So ADO is very smart. It's smarter than all of us combined. So if your aunt's not paying tax, you paying tax on that 50. She's paying tax on the 50 that she's left with. But in your case scenario, your maximum you'll be paying would be 30%. But in her case scenario, if she made like 400 or 300 or something like that, she'll pay 50% tax because the entity is in her name and there is no entity in the middle.
50% tax.
Mate, you make 300, 400,000 or 500,000. 47.5% is your highest tax bracket. That money will be gone. That's why people do it in trust structures, because over there they can take it up to the corporate trustee and pay only 30%, which is capped at 30%.
Yeah. In this case, not everything is under a trust, though. In this case,
it doesn't matter. So, but
you
you are going to give her an invoice to do the work.
Yeah.
Which will be almost equal to half the development profit. So she'll be left with half, and her bracket will go down. But then you have to pay tax on the money that comes to you. But because you have a family trust over there, you can take it into the Will Pty Ltd and cap the interest rate at 30%. Now, I'm not an accountant. I'm not supposed to tell you all these things. But that's how it would work. You got to see your accountant. You got to see your accountant, and you got to see a lawyer to get proper advice on this thing.
No, it's all good. It's all good. I'm not gonna sue you.
So yeah.
So I guess all the profits in this case could go to the trust for Will Family Trust, and then it will be capped at 30%. Let's say.
Yeah. If you have that Pty Ltd set up.
Okay. All right. So basically, I get together, I form a trust without transferring the property.
Yeah.
I form the trust, and then I just go and apply for the loan. I go to the bank and I present this. I do all my feasibility and so on, and I show the equity that we have in control, pretty much.
Yeah.